Meeting minutes, any questions, changes?
Move for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
At this point, we're going to have a public hearing with discussion and possible action on an application by Offerman Enterprises LLC for a conditional use permit for outside sales area at 1301 Gateway Circle. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to that issue? If you could give us your name,
I'm
please.
Larry Offerman, and we're the ones opening the online auction house over at 1301 Gateway Circle. And what we're looking to do is on the north side of the building, there's 10 parking spots we like to use. It's kind of behind our sign and everything for outside sales. There'll be some larger items that'll come in, cars, ATVs, snowmobiles, possibly some lawn and garden equipment and things like that. And we'd like to have a place where we could orderly display that. And things would show up there it'd be there for about 2 weeks, and then it would sell, or it wouldn't sell, and if it didn't sell, somebody'd pick it up and then remove it. So it'd be a constant turnover. It'd be something that we'd, keep orderly and clean, and we'd like to use part of our parking lot for that. Yeah.
Would that be gated and fenced?
No, it's just a regular parking, just our regular parking spots across the way. So yeah, there wouldn't be any gates or fences or anything put up for that.
No security at all?
There'll be security, just video security, but yeah, not locked or anything like that. And things will be cabled too. We'll be cabling it, like anything that's out there, it'll be locked and cabled, that type of thing, but not in gates.
I suggest we just take public comment now, we'll close the hearing, and we'll have a discussion.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that would want to speak to this issue? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You want to take that
Might as
issue?
well
I
take-
don't think it's going to be a lengthy discussion.
No,
I would recommend the conditional use permit. Larry, I just got a couple questions.
Sure.
Could you come back up to the lectern and maybe answer the questions then? One is, you're talking about a maximum probably a maximum 2-week period to be on display. Would that be a problem if the city put that as a condition of approval, that their maximum of 3 weeks that they'd be on
Yeah,
display?
3 weeks would be fine, that'd be all the
Give you a little
longer.
bit of flexibility, and then they have to be moved after that time period, because they're going to be cycled, but we just don't want something sitting there for a long term if they don't pick them up. And secondly, is there going to be any outside speaker system? Okay.
Yeah, no speaker, this is all online, so there's no live auctions or anything like that, or anybody talking. It's, you'll just go onto the website, people can bid. And the one thing you could do here is why we want to have the viewing area, so if somebody wanted to bring a car or the lawn tractor, they could bring it there, and people could stop by and look at it and start it up, that type of thing.
So you are able to come and look at the stuff live, but
Yep.
then you bid online?
Yep. And you can do it inside the building too with all our tables that we just finished today, so.
okay.
Is there adequate parking then, even though taking these 10 stalls out of here with the potential traffic and the other adjoining businesses where this should not impair anything to that?
Yeah, there would be no impairing. I've took over 3 sections of the building, so we're already taking over half the building. The other half of the building's gonna take over on the other side. There's actually full parking on one side of the building, full parking on the other side of the building, and parking all the way across the back. So there's a lot of parking around the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve? With that,
I move to approve with the condition that Denny has placed for the 3 weeks.
is there a second?
I'll second it with
Okay.
that stipulation.
Typically, if these new conditional use permits, you want to review after 1 year, just to give us an opportunity to.
In this one, yes. In this one, yes, because if stuff sits there.
You okay with that,
Yep.
Mary? Amend that? And you, Fred, you're okay?
Yeah, fine.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Larry. Next, we'll have a public hearing discussion, possible action on the application of the wine station Hudson LLC for a conditional use permit for a winery at 310 Second Street. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to that issue? Good evening.
Good evening. Vincent Negrete, and I am wanting to open that winery in 310 Second Street. Any questions that you have for me?
We would wait until the public hearing is over.
Okay.
Before we'd have, just if anybody else has any input into the public hearing. If there's no other people or person that would like to speak to the public hearing, I'd like to ask someone to close the public
I
hearing.
move to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Darnold, any, see you've got your
Well,
record.
this is the first opportunity we've had to review a proposal for a winery, distillery, brewery, or brew pub. Does everybody understand the location being north of Pudge's in the old Hudson Ford dealership? Currently, the building's undergoing renovations by Mr. Michael Murphy. The parking lot's being expanded, and we'll have 15 off-street parking places available, so approximately doubling the off-street parking capacity of the facility. We had a meeting today with Mr. Vincent, or Mr. Negret, Mr. Bob,
Butler.
sorry, Bob Butler. And to occupy the building at full capacity, utilizing a tasting room, lounge area, and possible small event area, the building has to be sprinklered. However, the current water system going in from Second Street does not support that. And there was a request to be able to break Second Street and construct the water line. City staff is opposed to that due to the current conditions, the fact that we don't want to close Second Street down this time of year, concern of having to have the street paved. So there's an agreement that if the Planning Commission and Common Council approves the conditional use permit for the winery, that they only use the winery for the production of wine and the sale, retail sales. So there'd be no tasting room, there'd be no lounge area, so there'd be no, sale of food, or consumption of food or wine on the site until the fire suppression system is inspected, approved by the city, and occupancy permits are granted. So that would be one condition, and I also listed a few other conditions in my report of yesterday. And basically, so I'm recommending approval with the conditions: the business must obtain and maintain all federal and state licensing and permits for a winery, and copies provided to the city for inclusion in the city files. Local liquor and wine licenses or permits must be approved by the Common Council. No outside storage provided other than commercial refuge, which is allowed under the city ordinance. And that short-term storage of grapes deliveries must be moved inside within a 24-hour period. When grapes are delivered to the site, they'll come in totes, they'll be placed outside, and they'll move them in. Now, sometimes they're processing those grapes during that time period, and they can't be moved in immediately. But what we want is that they're not sitting outside more than a 24-hour period, and that's acceptable to you, correct, Vincent?
That is correct.
And traffic material handling must be maintained to not disrupt vehicle or pedestrian traffic operations normally conducted in the downtown commercial district, and also reviewed by the wastewater treatment plant director of discharge to the city of wastewater treatment plant. And they provided some samples. That's reviews being currently considered by our wastewater. We don't foresee that there be any concerns, but we just want to make sure that it wouldn't create a concern for our wastewater treatment plant. And then also the condition that that it cannot be occupied for the tasting room, lounge areas, or any food or consumption until this water system is addressed. And then at that time, the occupancy permit would be granted, and they can move in those operations. I don't know if there's any other discussions that the Planning Commission wants to have, or Vincent has any other comments, but
I just have the question of what is the agreement between Pudge's and this? I mean, it appears you've got a shared patio, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you know, there has been discussion on the possibility of a shared patio. There's a liquor license issue that's, I believe, maybe was addressed by the city clerk this morning.
Okay.
There was some research as far as can premises descriptions have a shared area, and I think the answer is no. But that'll be a liquor license issue for the common council, and I don't think we'll address that here. I mean, the common council have to address what is the premises for a liquor license. Will that include only the inside of the building, or will they allow some area outside the building to be used also for, as the premises? And the Plan Commission has never addressed that. That's always been a common council issue, so we'll refer that issue to the common council.
Well, and my thinking was, you know, would there be free movement between both facilities? And if there was, I mean, I understand everything you said.
That issue would have to be addressed in the premises considerations of the liquor licenses.
Okay.
So are they in, so with the 15 stalls being placed, I'm understanding there's a possibility of 5 to 8 stalls?
Well, yeah, I did an analysis of possible payment in lieu of parking, depending on what their final numbers are as far as seats. Right now, they've expressed there'd be 40 seats in the tasting area, 10 seats in the lounge area, and then up to 90 seats in the event center. And if the patio's used, half the patio, basically if we're assigning what's been there in the past, would be 22 seats. So if that, you know, and I need to go back, because depending on, there's a number of elements that determine the payment in lieu of parking. One is how many seats are there. You know, we require 1 per 3 seat. However, they get an exemption for 6,000 square feet of building area. So I have to consider that. And then, so the numbers might be a little bit lower, but as we address the liquor license, we'll be addressing that payment in lieu of parking.
Any other questions?
I move for approval based on the the considerations of conditions that Denny has provided us.
Okay, is there a second?
And I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Can I just ask one
Yes.
quick question? So then, just so I'm clear, so any discussion about the patio or the payment in lieu of parking will come back here, or will go to city council,
You know, the patio area and the premises will be exclusively
common council?
a common council decision. There is the possibility of the payment in lieu of parking may come back here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, we're moving forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action of the application of Hanson Brothers LLC to rezone 201 Carmichael Road to be part of a golf course west of Carmichael Road, north of Cooley Road, from R1, one-family residential district, to PRD, planned residential district, from R1, one-family residential district, to B2, general business area of maintenance shed, and to amend the City of Hudson 2009 comprehensive plan from recreational to single and two-family residential, medium-density residential, and general commercial land use designations. Mr. Darnold.
You know, Hanson Brothers 12 LLC has applied for rezoning of their property, basically the golf course and the maintenance area, for rezoning to a planned residential district in the area where the maintenance sheds currently exist, an area of about 2.7 acres would be requested be rezoned to B2 general business district. That's the area immediately east of Plaza 94 Shopping Center and north of the Associated Bank. So it has B2 zoning in close proximity. What's being requested by Hunts Hagen Homes, if the rezoning would move ahead, would be to, for the city to consider a conditional use permit for a master plan for planned residential development. which would include approximately 221 one-family homes and approximately 11 acres of senior housing. Due to slopes in that 11-acre area, I believe there might be a possibility of 100 units, but it wasn't specifically designated, so that's just an estimate on my part. And then the 2.7 acres, or approximately at 2.7 acres, allow possibly 1 or 2 parcels of commercial development just east of Plaza 94. You know, when the application went to the Common Council, some of the Common Council members said, well, didn't we have the opinion or give the opinion to the Hanson brothers that this property would be held to the restricted covenants, and there's about 5.5 years. Those will expire on March 31st of 2010. I had a chuckle when
2020.
2020,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had a chuckle when I looked at the filing, because the filing of those restricted covenants was on April 1st. And if you think what April 1st is, it seemed a little bit ironical, but so from the standpoint, the question here, you know, I'm not asking for a decision tonight, and I'd like for Planning Commission to address any issues that they may want to have addressed. You may have some questions tonight that I haven't totally responded to in my comments, and I may have answers for you, but if not, certainly. But also give Hanshagen Homes an opportunity to discuss with us what their plans may be if rezoning would be considered by the Common Council. So, Chairman Burchill, I don't know how you want to proceed, if you want Hanshagen Homes
I think
or-
that'd be a good idea. I think
So,
there's.
John, would you like to? This is John Rass from Hanshagen Homes.
Yep, John Rance from Hans Hagen Homes, and with me tonight is Hans Hagen, and I've got a short PowerPoint presentation I'd like to just go through with you, showing you some of the graphics of the neighborhood. And we appreciate an opportunity to be here tonight to talk about this exciting new project. As you know, it was probably about 19 years ago we started building homes here in Hudson. Started with the Stone Pine neighborhood, which is just directly north of this piece of property. And then we moved south to Red Cedar Canyon. And I think we're down to about 20 lots. So we're looking forward to the next opportunity here in Hudson and continuing building homes in your community. Well, before I get into the specific parts of the neighborhood and the plan, I'd like to talk just briefly about the housing market, kind of what we see going on today, and I think that will help you understand some of the things that we have planned for the property. And it really has to do with the demographic change that's going on, not only in Hudson, but the country as a whole, and that's really the aging of the baby boomers and the aging of society, I guess, in general. And when you look at households today, only about 24% of them consist of what's been defined as the traditional nuclear family, husband, wife, and kids. That continues to drop. It was probably at a high of 40-some% in the 70s or 80s, and it's continuing to decline. And as the baby boomers enter into retirement, that's going to continue to dwindle in terms of that traditional household, and it's projected to go down to about 18%. Going forward. So really it's who's the 76% of the housing market? Well, it's it's the single people, it's the empty nesters, it's couples without children, as well as single parent households. And really when you look at this demographic, as we've done over the 45 years we've been building homes, we've really started to gather an understanding of what they want in a neighborhood, and specifically kind of looking at the last 5 years, there has been a significant change in the housing market, and it's not all because of the collapse. There's just a number of fundamental things going on. I think as people get busier, they want time for recreation, families, hobbies. They're not looking to maintain a home as much as maybe they were in the past, so low maintenance and convenience. But they still want the outdoor private spaces. They want the main floor masters and the 2 stories. And the one niche that we've always filled in the housing market is giving the customer the ability to customize and personalize their home. So we're not a production builder. People can make changes to their homes. They can make changes or do whatever they want with architecture, provided it conforms to our kind of standards, but it, finish off the yard and those sort of things. And where do they want to live? The one thing we're really seeing in Red Cedar Canyon is the empty nester buyer that really wants to be by grandchildren. They like to live in an active neighborhood. These aren't people looking for retirement communities. They like the activity of kids and other people that are in the neighborhood. And I think the one thing we're seeing as well is people wanting that proximity to shop-ins and goods and services. People are a little more aware of driving long distances for those things. So they like the convenience of those things in or near their neighborhood. And in terms of demand that we see in Hudson today, certainly they like to live and continue to live in this community, as well as look for trails and recreational amenities. So when you take a look at the property in question, it is, and you look at the geographic context of where this sits in your community, it does have all of those things that we're really looking for today in terms of building a new neighborhood, and that is that proximity to shopping. It is the trails and the sidewalks and the recreational amenities that are provided, as well as kind of a mix of housing within the neighborhood itself. And as we've looked at, this particular property, we've come up with a land plan that we think kind of responds to all of those things. And I think, as you know, we like to do larger projects where we're able to master plan an entire community. This isn't a neighborhood that gets built out in a year or 2 years or 3 years. It's probably a 7-year project. We thought Red Cedar Canyon would be a 7-year project, and we're here about 14 years later. So there are ups and downs in the housing market, and much like the last 14 years, there's probably going to be some more ups and downs. So this is a project that doesn't happen overnight, but would get started next year and continue to be built out in phases, much like we've done in Red Cedar Canyon, as well as Stone Pine. I think it's this particular site is really a spectacular piece of property. I think has some unique features about it, which can really create an interesting neighborhood. Again, it's the ability to kind of put all the pieces together on this large site so that it doesn't happen incrementally, and that there's a master plan for the neighborhood. It's very difficult, as you know, to plan neighborhoods 10 acres at a time and try to put all the pieces together. So this really is a unique opportunity. Our urgency is that we have the property under contract and are able to do this at this point, kind of controlling all the pieces, and look forward to putting that together. Also, when you have a bigger site, it gives the opportunity to incorporate amenities that you can't do on a smaller scale, some of the parks and trails. It gives us the opportunity to create transitions between the commercial properties and some of those kind of land use issues. Just a couple of the kind of specifics I want to touch on. When you, I guess in terms of the plan itself, I will
John,
refer.
maybe you just
Yep.
maybe explain orientation. On the right side of the screen is I-94, and on top is Carmichael Road for
Good.
anybody
Yes.
that's not orienting
Yep.
how this is laid out.
That's correct. So the large building you see, which would be to the southeast, is the Target. And then next to that being Walgreens, and Carmichael at the top of the screen. Just a couple of features of this site. The product type, and I'll get into a little later, the darker shaded is what we're calling our village homes. The lighter shaded property are traditional single-family lots. In terms of the site and its orientation to some of the surrounding features, the commercial, as I said, is a benefit, but it needs to be dealt with appropriately. So we're constructing some large berms along that property, which I'll show you here in a minute. But then I think importantly as well is the intersection and the entrance on Carmichael. Carmichael is a major gateway to your community on the east edge of town, and how that looks and feels to the community, I think, is very important, as well as how that is established for the neighborhood itself. You've seen what we've done in Red Cedar Canyon and Stone Pine, our entry features, that sense of arrival. And I think as you look at Carmichael, continuing a high level of design is important, not only for the neighborhood, but the image that it portrays to visitors and residents of your community. just to focus a little bit more on the berms and kind of looking at this site and how the residential relates to the adjacent commercial, it does need to be buffered. We've designed a large berm and drawn some cross sections through that berm just to make sure that the homes that would sit next to it would be fully shielded. So this is actually a cross section where you can see the target building on the right-hand side, and then what a two-story home would be, and you can see that really we're cutting off the line of sight. And I think anybody who's been on that property understands you get freeway noise, so the idea was to get a large berm along there to cut that noise down. There would be landscaping on top of it, and it would provide a buffer, I think not only to this neighborhood, but probably to the neighborhoods around here as well. One of the features of the neighborhood would be a large community park on the north side of the neighborhood. It would be about 34 acres in total. Try to depict it here as accurately as I can, but the boundaries will adjust with the lots. The site plan itself shows the actual, but it is 34 acres. It is a gorgeous piece of property, as many of you know, and we feel would make a wonderful addition to the city's park system. I'll go back to the earlier slide in terms of its connectivity with the adjacent trails and park system. But it is an opportunity, I think, for the city to preserve a very large part of this property. It's about 25% of the land as permanent public open space that can be enjoyed by the residents of Hudson in perpetuity. The use of the property, we don't have specific plans. I think that's an issue for your city park commission to take up. It is, I think, probably something that would like to be preserved in as close to its current state as you can in terms of the trees and some of the ponds and other features that are found on this property.
Have you already had an agreement with the folks from Stone Pine that they don't want this?
No, we have not had any discussion. The property itself, there was a covenant when Hans had sold the property to the golf course. He put a covenant on there that said if this property isn't utilized as a golf course, it has to be utilized consistent with the Stone Pine PUD. So it wasn't a reversionary language where it goes back to them. The ownership doesn't necessarily change. It doesn't transfer title. It just put restrictions on the use, and it gave the Stone Pine residents, I think was probably the intent, that they would have a say in what that parcel would be utilized for, but it wasn't necessarily intended to go back to them. So, but no, we haven't had any specific discussions with them about the park or how that land might be utilized with them. So, in terms of the homes, one of a new home to design and that we've been developing for the past about 10 years is what we call a village home. It's very similar to the estate homes that we built in both Stone Pine and Red Cedar. So it's a detached single-family home that has association maintenance. And really what we did is kind of took the popular floor plan that we had in our quad townhomes and separated that out into individual units. People really like the quads. But in terms of this site and being able to incorporate it into more of a terrain, made more sense to do a detached product. So basically we took those units, separated them, have put some good architecture on them. We put them on a lot and put them about 8 feet apart. And it gives the owner, unlike maybe a townhome where you've got people on two sides of you, you have your own personal yard, your own lot that it sits on in more privacy. There's some pictures of the similar homes we've built in Blaine up in the lakes, project that we've recently completed. One of the things we really focus on in this product, again, because the people are looking for privacy, is very private backyards, and put in an extensive amount of landscaping to achieve that. And then, of course, our traditional single-family homes. Even though the market is shifting, there's still a demand for single-family homes. Within the single-family lots themselves, we would have a lot of Rambler product like we're doing now in Red Cedar. One of the unique things we're doing in this neighborhood as well is we have a association that would cover the entire neighborhood and would provide kind of an à la carte service for homeowners association. So if you live in a single family home but you want lawn care or snow removal, you can contract to do that on an individual basis through the association. So really looking ahead at what the market's demanding and trying to come up with creative ways for people of different ages or, situation in life to have a single-family home, have some of that extra maintenance and conveniences that come with it, and provide kind of a full-service neighborhood. And just quickly, I wanted to touch on the park. I think the unique opportunity we have here is to connect to an existing kind of linear park system that the city has established with trails going through a series of open spaces. And I think cities all over the country are looking at ways to provide this type of linear park system, green corridors, and the opportunity to do that here, I think, is a real unique opportunity for the city to tie it into some larger park network. And as we looked at this site more closely, and there is a city parcel just to the west of this particular site that's I think a drainage swale, or it's a treed area, it's heavily treed, but would provide an opportunity to connect a trail over to Grandview Avenue that then ties in with the trail system that goes through Coons Hill Park into the sidewalk system on Vine. So I think, again, one of the unique opportunities with the site. So that, I guess, in a quick nutshell, is an overview of the project and what we're looking to do with it. And I guess at this time, I'd just stand for any questions that you may have of either me or Hans.
How did you, how would people get into the park by vehicle?
We haven't got into that really level of detail. I think there would be an opportunity to, whether it's from Grandview or something on the site. We do have some trail accesses that, depending on how the city would see this property be utilized, would it be something with a more active component, or would it be passive? Would it be the open space and trails, and would you want parking and vehicles in there or not? Don't know the answer to that, but I think depending on what direction the city would like to go with that, we could certainly look at, providing different features there.
I had one other question. As far as your cul-de-sacs, if you go to the Interstate 94 and the entrance from, is it Webster Street?
Ward Avenue.
Ward Avenue? Mm-hmm. Any chance, the snow plowing for cul-de-sacs is slow, and we get a lot of phone calls on cul-de-sacs, and how come it takes so long? Any chance that you could run two roads separate there, so we could have two thoroughfares there? I know that isn't probably your best deal, but the number of cul-de-sacs we have here this will be a nightmare for plowing.
Yeah, one of the challenges with this site, of course, is the topography. It's what makes it so interesting. So it's hard to tell from a two-dimensional drawing what's going on, but really the cul-de-sacs give us an opportunity to separate the grade or break the grade so that we're not just flattening out the site. So it really, I understand the concerns with cul-de-sacs, but in this particular, we weren't putting them in simply because the markability of a cul-de-sac. It was really trying to work with the grades of the site, and when you start looping them or connecting them, it gets very difficult to do that and try to preserve the topography. So,
Well, that particular area there is fairly flat, if I remember there.
Yeah, and certainly we could look at that. I without having the grading plan in
I'm
front of me, that was I know when you look at kind of where some of these roads go within the project, the one with the loop, the bigger cul-de-sac, the green island, that's actually going up the large hill there where the irrigation pond is, I believe.
Yep.
So again, trying to preserve the topography there. And then the homes, which would be to the east, actually sit quite a ways below. So they're down the hill from there, and then it steps down again, I believe. But I'd have to look at that, I guess, before I...
Mary, you had a question?
I had a couple questions. So similar to Red Cedar Canyon with the trails, if there was a park and the trails connect, how is that going to affect the I mean, is there gonna be some, I mean, who's gonna be responsible for the trails then that go through the development? Is it gonna be association maintained to a point and then city maintained?
Yeah, I guess we hadn't, I think though, we envisioned the open space to be public, so I would envision those to be public trails. If there were we've got private open space in here as well, you know, whether or not there's, I think there was another, was it 8 acres of private open space? If there's some trails that make sense to be private. I think given the location of this, you know, Red Cedar, I think you even know now as neighborhoods have developed around it, everybody comes and uses the trails, and I hear from the association from time to time that, you know, we pay for the trails and maintain them, and the whole public uses them, you know, and I don't think they mind so much, but it is one of those things that, you know, if you're going to have a public trail system, it would be nice to have the public have access to it without restriction and make that a community amenity. So I think given the location of the site, you know, and the way it backs up to the Stone Pine neighborhood and Gulfview Estates, those people would probably enjoy the trails as much as anybody, and I think that would make sense to have them public.
So I guess my next question to that is then, just being Public Works Chair, I know our budget, and I'm just trying to foresee how a 38-acre park right now would fit into the current budget we have. As it is, we struggle to keep up with the sidewalks and the trails and everything and keeping them clean. And then now we have another, and I don't know if anyone's, if that's even been addressed to our Public Works Director, budget-wise, and I don't know if you're looking at this development, I guess my other question would be to that, are you putting this together now and waiting, willing to wait the 5.5 years and just trying to get it ready to go? Or are you hoping to come back and try and see if the covenants can get turned again? I mean, I ask that because is there 5.5 years for the city to plan out the budget for another park? Or is this something that you are hoping would happen sooner and hoping that the city would be able to somehow get into their budget?
No, in
Not
terms
gonna
of
be
our
small.
schedule, it is something we're looking to do immediately. As I said, we're coming out of Red Cedar Canyon. We'd like to continue to build. We need lots to do that. If this is a 5-month or a 6-month or a 5-year project, it doesn't work for us, just to be completely honest about that. It's the opportunity for us is now. We'd like to do it if the city's interested in it, but it isn't. As I said, as you know, the whole thing doesn't get done at once. It may be a 7-year, and if the park comes online in 5 years, you know, that might be we could certainly talk about that. As you know, one of the things we'd like to do in our neighborhood is get those amenities, you know, in up front so that we're not selling the dream, but
Right.
that they actually exist and people can start to enjoy them the first day they move in. And so but if it's a matter of how do we phase that in, and maybe it could be a combination of, if, you know, there's a time period where the association could maintain some of it to the city was, you know, there's probably a lot of ways we could figure that out without just, you know, making it one or the other. And I think part of it gets to how does it get utilized? Is it, if it's just passive trails and you're just cutting grass on either side of the trails, or maybe mowing some of the area, versus, you know, a soccer field, for example, that requires a lot more upkeep. So I think what goes in there, how it goes in, when it goes in, that's all certainly open to discussion, of course, so.
Or the other would be that it could be a neighborhood amenity and they would pay an impact fee based on the number of lots. Would be the alternative to that.
Fred?
I'm looking at your access to this entire development, and you have 2 access points. And of course, there's been so much discussion about Carmichael. I'm curious why you've looked at that as one of the primaries, or do you have any other potential entrances and exits to this entire development? Because it appears you've got 2, which creates traffic points. I mean, no matter how you look at it, and it completely restricts access, I guess, for any flow through of the development by anybody else or anything else, or is it designed that way because you don't want other people in there? I mean, it could work both ways, so I guess I'm asking, why have you not looked at other access points to getting in and getting out of there to divert traffic out of traffic-prone areas, and spread things out and increase fire access, increase the ability for people not to be waiting at lights and all kinds of things. So I'm just curious what you're thinking there is.
Sure. As you know, you've all seen the plans for the new Carmichael interchange. One of the options that was thrown out was actually running a frontage road through this golf course property. So the frontage road would remain in its current location. There would be, I think, planned under that, the improvements identified for the Carmichael interchange, a signal at this intersection, this proposed street with Carmichael, so that would be a controlled intersection at that point. So I think that have to be designed appropriately, but can get traffic in and out. We've connected to Ward Road. Yes, I don't think we want it to be a major cut through, but we also understand that you need to provide for that movement in more than one location. So having that connection, I think, is important. There is a connection that was requested or required by the city, I believe when Hanson Brothers had subdivided off the commercial property,
Right.
and that's the road that goes up past the clubhouse there to the north. And as I understand it, that's to be somewhat of a reliever to Carmichael so that local traffic doesn't have to get on Carmichael, and I would suspect that's probably anticipated to go up to Vine at some point in the future. So that might be a way to relieve traffic on Carmichael. The other possible connections are really difficult, of course, because of the topography on this site, in just what's around for existing roads. There's just not a lot of opportunity to get to the north anywhere where there's an existing street that you could connect to, or just either because of topography or just the lack of availability.
How about to the west, though?
Through this city property there?
I don't know, I'm just asking the
Yeah.
question. I mean, I don't know the answer, please, and I'm not trying
Sure.
to stir you, it's just trying to say why or why not, you know?
Yeah, I haven't looked at that. I don't know. That's a very, I think, challenging piece from what I know of it, but.
Or through there's the water retention pond between the back of the grocery store and Fridays there, that I'm sure if you could handle the takeoff of the water that's collecting onto your property, you could maybe gain access there. Follow what I mean?
I mean, Mary Claire's got a,
Follow what I mean?
I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I just have a bigger picture question in terms of, there's a decision made to keep it under private restriction golf course, there's another 5 years. So why the change in thought? Number one, just asking that question. Has the property been marketed to anyone that might be interested in reopening it as a golf course? To keep it as that? So I guess those are the two questions I have is, there's already a restriction on it. So is this just an idea that to bring forth because it's just sitting there idle? And then the other question is there someone that wants to come in and run it as a golf course?
I can't speak for the Hansons because I don't think they're here.
well, yeah, I mean, it kind of gets, I've kind of held my tongue here
Yep.
to allow some discussion, but to try to get into too much detail on a master plan as we're currently is proposed. This master plan, or the concept that Hans-Hagen Homes is bringing forward, is to give you an idea of what may happen if a rezoning occurs.
Right.
The next, and I just want to take a couple, now get back to your basic question. If the zoning would occur, they'd have to come back, get a conditional use permit, master plan. The master plan is a negotiated
Right.
plan. What they submitted is only a starting point. And we'd have a lot of issues, storm drainage, width of right-of-ways. I mean, just a number of issues. Are there areas that are greater than 20% slopes that cannot be graded that they propose for grading? I mean, there's a number of issues that have to be reviewed. Access, to Cooley Road, Ward Avenue, Carmichael Road, where it's a city park or where it's a private park development. All those things would be negotiated. But that takes time. The issue, the question came up at the Common Council. We told them no. We told them that they're gonna hold, the city council's gonna hold the Hanson Brothers 12 LLC to the restrictive covenants that they agreed to in 2010. That does not prevent or gives the city the right not to allow them to ask for a rezoning. The city attorney and I have discussed this. They have a right to ask for rezoning. The answer of the planning commission and the common council may be no. We are not willing to rezone the property. But this is the start of a process to look at that, to have that discussion and to make that decision. So just because they've applied doesn't mean the city has to approve a rezoning consideration.
The other area of question I would have, Denny, is this overall impact to our wastewater treatment. When we did our master plan, we were anticipating other properties around there coming in, and we kind of had excess capacity earmarked for places with the understanding or assumption that this was going to be staying a golf course and no reason to allocate for it or hold back for it. What, if this were to come in, a project of this size, what impact would that have on our carry capacity?
Well, our typical review of our wastewater treatment plant capacity is to take all the properties within the corporate limits of the city of Hudson, assign those properties, and we've essentially assigned the golf course 0 additional other. I mean, you know, you could have some commercial development that would occur north of the clubhouse. I mean, that was discussed. That was approved. The zoning's in place. That'd be pretty minimal. You might be talking 5 to 5,000 gallons a day. If 221 homes and potentially senior housing is developed, you're looking at the potential of 60,000 gallons a day. Then that might be a little bit high, you know, with the consideration of plumbing fixtures being more efficient and so forth. Because we have found that our increase of demand on the wastewater treatment plant hasn't been as high in the last 4 or 5 year period of time. Now, part of it is because some of our development slowed down due to the recession. But also part of it has to do with plumbing efficiencies and the fact that not as much water is going to the wastewater treatment plant. The last time we did an analysis, taking all the properties inside the city of Hudson and saying, okay, we're trying to allocate as we can best estimate, we had a capacity within the city of Hudson of about 60, ironically, about 60,000 gallons a day. So basically, if this development would occur, full development, and Rick is saying, you know, and my caution to the Common Council during the last probably 5 to 7 years has been we have to continuously look at, during annexations or a potential change like this may be, is when do we have to decide to expand the wastewater treatment plant? And at some point, there's going to be a project or projects that now require that consideration. And the reason it's being cautioned because it takes 3 years from the time we start the process of planning, design, 3 years to open that capacity up. Now, does a project like this all come on board in 1 year? Absolutely no. They've told us it might be 5 to 7 years build-out consideration, so it's incrementally. So from that standpoint, and in some communities, in trying to address those issues, have only permitted some developments, so many building permits per year. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying, you know, how do you control, how do you try to legislate or manage those types of considerations? But those types of things could be done. But yes, I mean, if you took this, which was not allocated for, because, you know, we thought it'd be a golf course, hopefully for a long, long time. Now it being potentially developed as a residential development could use that capacity that we had within the city limits that was unallocated and possibly allocated for areas outside the city and that would be coming in for annexation.
Does
Go ahead.
this proposal encompass the entire golf course?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so the other pieces where, you know, the decision was made if they want to break it off into commercial, this is the whole.
Well, there's the only part that's not that's not included in this one is you have the club, what we call the clubhouse, restaurant, banquet.
Yes.
And then you have where the 18th hole is at. That area had been allocated for B2 general business. That's what the zoning's been, so we've allocated that. But everything else
Okay.
is under this general provision or proposal.
There's lots of questions on this, but I think the question that maybe is before us, and I know it's a zoning question, but I think there's a bigger question on whether or not we want to consider this kind of a project. We talked about it 6 months ago or 5 months ago, and has anything changed? And I think we need to look at it in a fair manner to say, is there something that we've changed our attitude about it in the 5 or 6 months?
Like, I think that's why I asked the question to John of, are you planning to build this in 5 years? When are you looking to start this build? Because we either have to look at, are we gonna reconsider the decisions that was made in the past? Or is this something that they wanted to set before us for the future outlook, as a rezoning for future outlook, since this is not considering the change of the covenants yet? What it sounds like from John is, the next step, if we were to go with this, is to reconsider the change of the covenants. So I'm kind of at a crossroads in my mind, especially as a voting member on the council, that I'm not thrilled about the city park concept yet, just because I don't understand where we're gonna find the money to run a city park right now. As much as I fought for a city park 5 years ago and we got it, and the question back then was, how are we gonna run a city park? Alan voted against me on it, in fact, when we did it. But, we have that one, so I see the struggles of Public Works trying to, they do a great job, but it's, we're trying to hire more people on to keep up with the growth that Hudson has had. So I see the concerns of the cul-de-sacs, just because I represent what is nicknamed the cul-de-sac district. So I'm the one who always gets yelled at every time there's a snowstorm. So I guess my other concern is, I expressed this concern before I voted against changing the covenants last time, was to look in the future, what do we want to see there in 5 years? If Hans Hagen is interested now in building, but they're not interested in 5 years, and the covenants is expired, what's going to go there? Because we don't know who's going to be sitting here in 5 years. And we can't really legislate on that either, not trusting future councils or future plan commission members, but we have an opportunity here to keep this as low impact as possible, or it could become commercial of who knows what in 5 years. We don't know.
I can tell you, I don't think it's gonna be a golf course ever again. That's my personal view. I don't think anyone's gonna go in there and build a golf course, or redo it. I mean, it's gone, folks. I mean, the greens are ruined. If you look at, what's happened there, it's not buildable it would take way more money. And in today's environment, I don't think there's anyone interested in building new golf courses in the present market conditions. So I think we ask ourselves as the Plan Commission, what's the best use of this property? Is it the best to sit vacant? I know at one time we looked at some commercial property. I mean, he wanted to do a commercial project in here. My view is that the residential is way better than the commercial.
And I said that when we were talking about the covenants, I will
Yep.
not go for commercial over there. So.
But I think that's something we have to think about, and everybody has to take a look at. And if you don't think it's, you want to wait it out, I think that's the question that the Plan Commission and the City Council has to decide. Whether or not we want to move forward with this. You talk about operating expenses, the taxes generated from this will hopefully offset a lot of the expenses that we're going to need for plowing and the city park and, the park fees. And, I would certainly hope that the Hansons would come and talk to us a little bit about this too, because it's their land. Whether or not they're willing to do some other things to make this a sweeter deal for the city. And I don't know what that is.
Well, and Mary Claire brought it up, and I just want to say something that, I feel the city was schnookered out of a amenity that we had here since I was a kid, the
Okay.
golf course.
Yep.
And they sold it to them, I mean, who knows how that price was determined, but they saw value in that property, maybe as a golf course, but maybe beyond that. And so the city of Hudson residents have been schnookered on this deal. And our form of reprisal to them is not to let them build. I mean, how long do you punish somebody for schnookering us? You know, before you wake up and say, hey, you know, there's an eventuality here that something has to happen. And that's the part I'm struggling with right now, because I don't want to say okay, because I don't like getting the rug pulled out from underneath me. But counter to that, at what point in time do you change your opinion?
That's the question that I
That's
think
what
we
I'm-
have to answer.
I understand that.
So I would just ask the question, because the question was raised, you know, this offer is today, does that mean it's not here tomorrow or in a year from now or 2 years? So I guess I'd like to hear again the answer to that question of, you know, is this something that if you don't get a response in the next 4 months or 6 months, that it's off the table, or a year, or I understand 5 years is a long time from now as you're trying to build your business plan, but, I mean, this is a lot of information. We have a lot of questions. There's a lot of pieces that yet need to be determined before we can just say, yes, we'll go ahead with rezoning. So what's your time frame?
Welcome, Mr. Hagan.
Thank you. I'm Hans Hagen. Good question. It's complex, but there's a number of pieces to it. Number one, we don't know what's going to be here in 5 years. We don't know what the environment is for housing, that sort of
Right.
thing. And it's very important we do that, because as a master plan community, you're putting millions of dollars up front, as John says, so that when people move in, they're not waiting for a dream. They've got it and they can use it the next day.
Yes.
And that's been our style. There's other issues, and that is that, number one, we're out of lots. We've got 17 lots. We don't want to leave town. We've been here for 20 years, and Hudson's been great to us. The other issue is selfish. When we looked at Stone Pine, it's hard to understand, but as a developer, when you look at a raw piece of ground, you get all excited. It's kind of like a farmer saying it's flat and it's got just great soil. And that's what happened, and then we went from there to Red Cedar Canyon. Actually, my son saw that property and said, Dad, you got to do it. And we did it. And we had the same thing when we looked at the golf course. We looked at the golf course probably 18 months ago, maybe a little longer than that, and we turned it down because when we talked to our surveyor, they said, that property makes a very good golf course. And
It does.
and so we argue a lot with our surveyor. He's really good, and we always push him to try and do things that architecturally are interesting, and he tries to make the water run downhill. So we did come up with a plan. As you can see, it's relatively low density because we're leaving so much open ground. Another issue is really that once you get all of your subcontractors, and it's more difficult in Wisconsin because sometimes we have to pull people over if there's a specific trade that we can't get here. For the most part, the trades are actually coming from town. In fact, we've got people in our corporate office that live in Hudson and have lived here for years. So there's a whole combination of things that says, if we can't do it and we understand that if there's some reason it doesn't fit for you, that's cool, you've been great to work with. If, however, it can't work, we can't be here in 5 years because we have to go on and do something else. So that's a long answer to your very straightforward question.
So what about the 4, 6 months or the year question? Understanding that you can't wait 5 years, but what about the 4 or the 6 months till we have time to study and evaluate and get more information?
Well, I think you need the proper amount of time
Right.
to study it. It's a complex site. We've
Yes.
done a lot of that work, but you're going to have more questions. And there's all sorts of questions that come up like, how does it integrate with the cost of doing cul-de-sacs, as an example? And we have some ideas to make it simpler where your plowing people would actually delighted to do it. In fact, we're doing that over in another community. Won't go into that now, but it's integrating that. It's also talking about your budget in terms of your parks.
Right.
Because such an opportunity when John showed you where the park is and then how you start hooking that together with your whole pedestrian transportation plan.
Right.
It's unique to be able to find something sitting in the center of town that all of a sudden connects other places that are stopping. Now, all of that takes time. That's our job. We'd like to move it along quickly, simply because we would like not to stop. But we understand you need the time to make those decisions and make sure they're right. So we're willing to work with you on that and certainly go at your speed. We'd like to go faster rather than slower.
Well, you've been a great partner, so thank
All
you.
right, and just comment in regards to timetable. The Common Council set the public hearing on December 15th, so we have one more meeting to make a recommendation. The city attorney called me the other day and said, Plan Commission will be making a recommendation prior to the public hearing. And I said, that is our full intent. However, if the comfort level of Hanson Brothers, Hanshagen Homes, City of Hudson, maybe that we need more time. I think if we got a letter from Hanson Brothers, Hanshagen Homes, giving us more time to review it, giving us a waiver of some of the timetables, that then we could work that out. Otherwise, we need to make a decision and get a recommendation to the Common Council for the public hearing on December 15th.
I think we should bring it back to the next plan commission meeting and let us digest some of this, and, I mean, the information's in front of us. I think for most of us is exactly what Fred said, you know? We all felt a little snickered, as Fred called it, and, you know, but I agree with him as well that 5 years is a long time to not know what's gonna be there too, and it's, we have an opportunity here, and I think we should look at it a little further and at least give that till the next meeting and see what we can think of.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I think it's wise.
That was my intent, was just get discussion tonight, let you think about it, give you a couple of weeks to maybe formulate, if you have questions, concerns, get your questions, concerns to me. If I can't answer them, we'll relate them to John and Hans and have those addressed and get answers back for you for our next meeting on December 4th.
Were the Hanson brothers just not able to be here tonight, or?
I don't know.
Do we need to make a motion to postpone then until the next meeting, or just table it, or
Well,
what?
we just don't take any action on it. We'll bring the issue back on December 4th.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yep.
We have anything else on the
Well,
agenda?
that's it, other than other business.
Other business for upcoming?
Just our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 4th at 7 PM. That would be our last Plan Commission meeting of the 2014 calendar year. We won't have any additional meetings then until after the first year.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.